Max, what's going on here?
Yeah, those four things in a row don't sound good, do they? So, only a couple years ago, Meredith Whitney was a true star. I mean, Wall Street, at the end of the day, doesn't have that many stars that sort of people really know and they understand.
Or female
opinions.
stars, for that matter.
Let
right?
alone female stars, absolutely. Hedge funds, I mean, you can count on your hand how many significant hedge fund managers there are. It's incredibly tilted.
Yeah.
So people, I think it's fair to say, in some ways, are really pulling for Meredith Whitney. And over the last few months, sort of all the things that you don't want to see happen at your hedge fund have happened. To be fair, on the one hand, it's been a really hard year for hedge funds across the board. But Meredith Whitney's hedge fund, which is called Ken Bell Capital, and her fund is called American Revival Fund, they have had some pretty nasty things go on, like their biggest investor, who's tied to a billionaire named Michael Platt. They have asked for their money back, and the interesting thing is, Ken Bell Capital, as far as we know, has said no. They don't want to give the money back. And then on top of that, they have major executives leaving, so it hasn't been pretty.
Well, I think people were pulling for her, but I got to tell you, Max, there were a lot of people gunning for her, for her demise. I mean, she really, for lack of a better word, pissed a lot of people off with her muni bankruptcy call. I mean, a lot of people came on the phone with me and were like, who the heck does she think she is? So she's had friends and enemies on Wall Street, right?
No, that's fair. Actually, when I first came to Bloomberg News, which is like almost exactly 4 years ago, I remember I was watching TV on a Sunday night, and the 60 Minutes came on. And it was when Meredith Whitney said on national television there's going to be a spate of municipal defaults. So in other words, billions of dollars of towns and cities in New York defaulting, across America, I should say. And people were kind of freaked out at that. That was a scary thing to tell. It's a scary thing, yeah. And one of my first stories for Bloomberg was about how she sort of said when I asked her about it, that it was sort of a guesstimate. And I remember she said something along the lines of like fifth derivative dimensions had gone into her calculus, that she didn't have specific math to back it up. I remember it was the gist of a story I wrote down. And so I think the people were upset not only that Meredith Whitney had sort of predicted this very dire prediction about America, but that it turned out she didn't really have sort of specific things backing it up. But an interesting link between that and the hedge fund is that American Revival Fund was sort of, it seemed that it was going to be putting her theses into the market.
Into place.
Right, and that my sense was that she had this idea that sort of, so-called flyover states, right, like Texas and Arkansas, that their economies were going to grow faster than New York and California. And, I think that in some cases that very well may be true, but I guess it's really hard to make specific bets on stocks.
On a big call like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in today's story, I've written a couple of stories about Meredith over the last few days, but in today's story we wrote about a retailer called Conn's in Texas, which sells like appliances and electronics on credit in the South. And it's been down, I think, something more like, down more than 50%, I think, this year. And we wrote that she's lost a couple $1 million on it.
Just based on that.
Just on that alone. And it's not a huge fund, so hard days, I guess.